Hey guys, I am going to be talking about a very important aspect today. It is the development of a child, which leads to his personality. And it will help us in the end of this video. I would like to um, actually help the audience understand other people better. Working in a diverse environment can be very difficult as you cannot relate to a lot of people. You might find yourself in situations where you might think some people are difficult, and however, I feel like that a lot of things are definitely some things that you could overlook and not take personally. And I feel like by the end of this video, I would be able to inform you and help you see through Freud's psychosexual perspective. So, our personalities are controlled by the conscious and unconscious mind. There are three parts of the unconscious mind: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is a part of us which enjoys taking pleasure in things. It's our natural instinct, and it's basically fulfilling our desires. And the superego is what rears us in a way that is common to other people, such as a society, our culture, our religion, the norms, basically. And the ego is what is the organized and realistic part in our mind. So we basically use our ego to rationalize certain things, and it is also the bridge between the id and the superego. And so basically, what we want and we should want is decided by the ego. Furthermore, there are a lot of psychological, unconscious psychological, sociological theories about child behavior. And as an adamant Freudian today, we're going to learn about Freud's stages of psychosexual development that every child goes through to become an adult. Sigmund Freud is an Austrian neurologist. He believed that children experience unconscious sexual fixations as they grow older, and this sexual urge changes with every stage. And without proper resolution following each stage, we are most likely to experience faults in our future personalities. And basically, the first stage in our lives starts as from 0 to 1.5 years age, I would suppose, would be the oral stage. And in this stage, the mouth is the erogenous zone, and their entire stimulation is more focused in the oral area. So a lot of infants you see, they're suckling, they're chewing on their hands, and they eventually, their stimulation is more oral, let's say orally surrounded. So eventually, as they move out of this stage, they become less dependent on their mothers and anything. So basically, they're least likely to want to breastfeed or suckle on their mother, and therefore, in theory, if a child is neglected during this peak oral stimulation time, through overfeeding or even through underfeeding or even oral feeding, he or she is most likely to be fixated to this oral stage, and this could result in issues with dependency. Examples of this fixation can lead to smoking, sucking thumb, biting nails, binging, any sort of excessive or sort of obsessive behavior, which leads to stimulating their oral area. So you would find a lot of people who have, bad habits, and it's not only designated to smoking or the examples I provided. Anyway, fixated to this stage, it is harder to move to the next stage. Being fixated to any stage makes it very difficult for a person to move to the other stage, and the other stage in line would be the anal stage. This stage is from 1 year old to 3 years of age, and just at the peak time of potty training, and thus the erogenous zone shifts from oral to anal, and basically what the child realizes is going to the bathroom is going to be a very pleasurable event. And our ego and superego play a big part in this, where our id experiences the pleasure in exiting feces. And however, our superego and ego signify, societal pressure to resist succumbing to bodily functions. And so pretty much the theme over here is self-control. And therefore, if the parents are too strict on potty training or too loose on potty training, both could lead to fixation in this stage. And thus, most children, they grow up to be they grow up to be anally expulsive, which means very limited self-control, disorganized, defiance, careless. This, you know, this could be through pretty much less control over potty training. So very, children whose parents don't really care about their potty training could eventually end up having children who do not have much self-control. Furthermore, there's another child, which is an anally retentive, which means obsessively organized, rigid, submissive to authority. Where pretty much someone, you know how somebody goes like, oh, they're being so anal, and I feel like a lot of times that's what they pretty much mean by anally retentive, which means obsessively organized and very clean, and clean freaks and stuff. So pretty much, if not fixated to this anal stage, the child transitions into the phallic stage. And pretty much the phallic word, it comes from Latin, which refers to penis, and the focus is pretty much on the genitals. This occurs at the age of 3 to 6, and it is one of the most intricate stages and the most important stages too. The name, well, because of the difference in sexual organs of heterosexual males and females, it is most likely there will develop a set of complexes going through this stage. And so pretty much for heterosexual males, they're most likely to develop something called the Oedipus complex. And in the Oedipus complex, basically what happens is they become very fond of their mother and develop this jealousy towards their fathers. And however, as soon as the child realizes that the mother does not have the same genitals as him, they suffer through this thing called castration anxiety. And it's mostly, realizing that, like, I don't have a penis like my mother, and she could potentially be harmful to something that she doesn't have. So pretty much as as he has his anxiety, he starts to repress those feelings towards his mother, and finally, according to social norms and their superego, they try to act like more their fathers, and this is basically the resolving of this complex. And moreover, there's for women, for girls, on the other hand, heterosexual females, on the other hand, they go through something called the penis envy, and they also go through the Electra complex, which is the female version of the Oedipus complex, and instead they develop a liking for their father. And as soon as they understand, they develop this penis envy, they pretty much understand that they do not have the same genitals as their father, and soon their attraction ends when their gender realization occurs. And pretty much failure to resolve these complexes leads to the fixation, and which can be pretty destructive in the future, because a phallic characteristic can demonstrate recklessness, narcissism, resoluteness, and these attributes that you basically get from being fixated into this stage can pretty much disable you from conducting a loving relationship or a a loving relationship with anybody around you. And these personalities also have problems in dealing with authority, and they have difficulty confining themselves in a serious relationship. And more so, some some theorists also believe that the children who come from a single parent household are pretty much stuck in this stage, and which leads to daddy issues. And you know and furthermore, since theories were more geared towards a heterosexual environment, Freud also thought that an unresolved phallic stage can lead to homosexuality due to the child's inability to identify properly with their own gender, and so they suffer through a gender identity crisis. And these theories are obviously a little older, and therefore they're not. I hope it doesn't offend anyone that it doesn't cater to all the sexualities out there, and therefore rationalization. Pretty much the resolvation to this. To all these complexes is basically your ego, and rationalization, on the other hand, can fix these complexes the children go through, of you know Oedipus complex and the Electra complex. And pretty much, once you help them rationalize and they can rationalize within themselves, the children pass through this difficult stage and finally enter the latency stage, which is actually one of the most peaceful intervals in a person's life. And this happens before the puberty, so it happens from 8 to 13. And pretty much this is a transitioning state from where the child is so sexually driven, and then suddenly it becomes very dormant in the latency stage. And this is the prime time for a child to experience, explore different things such as academics, sports. Friendships develop. They become more attached to their family. And usually in heterosexual children, they're most likely to have a lot more same-sex friends. And this is a very vital stage for a child to explore and pursue education right before the genital stage, which is one of the last stages. And this stage pretty much occurs from the puberty onwards. And once more, the child's sexual urges are aroused. And this stage, being the last stage, is inversely proportional to all the previous stages. So it's very important that you transition from those stages into these new stages in order to be completely ready for this last stage, because you are dealing with a lot more responsibility, knowing that you have more control after puberty. This is the last stage where it consists of children forming relationships outside their family, and therefore they have to have a very good balance in it. It's when your ego, your super ego, your id, they're in correlation with each other, and that's why it allows them to properly communicate with other people and form these social relationships with other people, and bring balance into their life. However, because it's related to the previous stages, an improper transition from the earlier stages can actually result in failure. And coming from like I said, coming from failure from the oral stage can lead you to smoking, excessive aggressive behavior, and just different bad habits, obsessive habits of biting your nails. And you find a lot of people doing that around you when you're actually working. You find a lot of people smoking, and it's just some people just they're very insensitive to seeing other people smoke, and they think it's just rude. And and I feel like it's understandable that they may have an oral fixation that they need. And another one would be someone in the anal stage, from someone who's very rigid, very organized, and someone coming from the phallic stage who is very who's who's always in a bad mood, or someone who has a very narcissistic personality. And I feel like how this relates to our class is that no one should take things personally when working in an environment with diverse people, and our experiences are the things that make us and also break us sometimes. However, it is very difficult to deal with different people, and looking at different theories where we can look at different perspectives from people. It is definitely important that we know what develops us, and we know what develops other people, and we know how to understand to deal with ourselves and other people through learning about all the stages of development that we go through in order to make up why or how people do what they do. And I really hope I didn't offend anyone. I'm sure I've passed way a lot of time, and but I wrote all of this myself from gathering from the books that I have, and hopefully you enjoyed this and I helped you look through a different perspective than your own about why people are sometimes the way they are. And you know I hope this is an informative lesson about Freud's psychosexual development of a child, which eventually leads to a person that you may be working with. So, thank you and have a wonderful day.